Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Record Player. Scott here, as always. My guest today is considered one of the greatest guitar players in the world. His work includes 10 solo albums or so, if I'm right on that one, as well as a bunch of other collaborations. And of course, he was a member of one of the world's greatest rock and roll bands, Canada's very own legendary Triumph. He's also a teacher, a coach, a brother, a son, a husband, a father, and an author. His new book is called "Lay It on the Line." Here it is. Here, backstage pass to adventure, backstage pass to rock star adventure, conflict, and triumph. I'm happy and proud to be welcomed into the Record Player here with Rik Emmett. How are you, Rik?
I'm good, man. I'm great.
Good to hear. How's the new year treating you? Well, New Year. We're not New Year anymore. We're 3 months in. But
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I was hoping that we might be finished with the snow, but you and I are talking here. It's the 19th, and it looks like we're getting a little bit of a blowout there. I'm sitting in Burlington. I don't know where you're located, but
I am. Well, you're a stone's throw away. We're in Georgetown, so not bad.
oh, okay, yeah. So we're getting a bit of a blanket out there, which oh well, can't escape it. But no, it's doing great. I've The book has been doing really well, and I've got this compilation album that's come out called Diamonds that is doing really well. And I've actually finished recording and writing a new album and a new book. They're in the can, waiting. It won't be till next February when ECW puts that one out. It's called 10 Telecaster Tales. So I've been really busy and creative, and it keeps me happy. That's what I'm here for.
It's one thing to be a great songwriter and lyrics and music and write such beautiful songs, but I'd imagine a book is a whole different ballgame. I mean, how or is it? I mean, it's your life, so how easy was it to write an entire book compared to being a songwriter?
It was not easy. It was difficult, and it was a different kind of a process. In this case, I had like a forum on my website for members and for decades. And so I had tons and tons of emails where I'd, written, answered questions. So I had lots of stuff to start with. It was more of an editing job than it was and it was, as I've said to songwriters in workshops many, many times, it's not about writing, it's about rewriting. Like, yes, an original idea is fine, but then how do you shape it? How do you, make it fit with everything else that's happening? So that was really what the memoir was like. Plus, in my case, the thing that is going to draw somebody towards a memoir, rock star playing his guitar on the cover, is like, oh, rock star. They want those kinds of stories. They want those kinds of anecdotes, and so I was happy to provide that. But in my case, I tend to be a much more sort of eclectic. As my friend Blair Packham said to me recently, your book is unusual. And he said, but that's because you are unusual. And I went, no, it's true. And I always take those kinds of things as a compliment, like not as an insult. Like I once had a guy write in a review in one of the guitar magazines, oh, he's too eclectic for his own damn good. And I went, I'm going to use that in my bio. I like that. Like, that's kind of true. And there's always a little part of me where I'm going, well, this is what people might consider to be conventional. I don't want to be conventional. I'm going to be unconventional. So my memoir is equal parts. Well, I was a college teacher for a couple of decades, and so you're going to get a lot of that. And I wrote in the guitar community. I had a column in a magazine. A guitar has been a huge thing for me, so there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of musicianish kinds of stuff, not rock star. They're very different kinds of animals. And so I think some people are going to get my book and go, wow. I had a friend a family friend, and he said, well, I really enjoyed the front part where it was sort of the story of your life. But then, you got really teacherly, and Rik, man, it was really good for my insomnia.
Jeez, you're still friends with it then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't mind taking the Mickey from time to time. It's all right.
I mean, I've read a lot biographies and memoirs and stuff where it is nothing but the career. And with you, you had a great balance between family growing up, your family life now, your career other than music. Which part was it harder to write about? Was it harder for you to write about the family stuff, or was it harder for you to write about the rock star stuff?
Oh, no, no. The hardest thing was the Triumph chapter. Like, of all the, there, I can't remember how many chapters there are in the book, but there's 20 odd chapters or more. And there's one that's the Triumph chapter, and I had to have lawyers read it, and friends go. And I toyed with the idea of sending it to Mike and Gil and getting them to read it beforehand, but then I thought, no, I got to have a certain amount of courage, to sort of say the things that I want to say. And the truth of that one was that and this is partly why I wrote the memoir in the first place, was because the Triumph documentary had come out, and it was a story about Triumph, and it was a story about the three of us and what we did and what the band was. But that band was always kind of Gil's band. And so that story it's kind of Gil and Mike's story. It's not really mine. So then I thought, well, I'm going to write my memoir now. I'm going to make sure that I tell my story. So that was why that chapter was kind of a tough one, because there were things that I was going to actually get into that I've never really even got into with Mike and Gil when we sit down, because there's certain things where you go, look, let's just leave the stuff that created Bad Blood, that then got into the water that ran under the bridge. It was, that water went under the bridge a long, long time ago. Let's not dredge that stuff back up again, So that chapter kind of had a lot of things that I was trying to do, and then some things where I was going, that's not necessary. I don't need to do that. And I mean, I don't want. I'm not going to give you an exclusive here or anything, but I will go this far. Yeah, well, this is kind of like a chunk of stuff that why do people read memoirs, especially guys that have been in bands and the bands broke up and then they got back together and blah blah blah. So my good friend Terrence Young, I knew him from high school, and he was a reader for me, like a beta reader that would go through stuff. And I took the Triumph chapter to him a few times. Now, he had served as a member of both provincial parliament and federal government. So he knew a thing or two about putting your foot in your mouth, and so he'd gone to Osgood Law School for a bit. He didn't become a lawyer, but he has a kind of a, he's known a lot of lawyers in his life. Anyhow, so he read the stuff and he would get back to me. And at one point he said to me, Rick, the thing, the biggest sticking point between you and Gil was that Gil really just wanted Triumph to be a band for him that it had been for you, the vehicle that Triumph had been for you, that got your songs on the radio and got you known as a writer and a singer. That's what Gil wanted too, so you can't blame him. You can't feel bad about that, and that was right. That was true, so then there was a lot of stuff that I could just let go. It was like, once I'd reached that sort of understanding of, there wasn't anything malicious about it. It was just, it was the standard thing that breaks up all bands, oh, they had artistic differences. Yes. Creative. Irreconcilable.
It's therapeutic though, right? To get it all out and get it, a lot of stuff that's built up.
For sure. And the other thing that's kind of nice too is, of course, there it is now sitting on the shelf, and I've got 4 grandkids and 1 on the way. And there is this thing about, you're saying, well, I've reached that age and stage. I've had my, 70th birthday now. And it's like, okay, and there's a certain thing about putting your house in order. And my grandkids might not ever read it. But then again, they might, it's there, it's available. And I got to admit, it's a kind of a cool thing when you get to walk into an Indigo and you see your book on the shelf and you go, like, I got that when my poetry book came out. I got that vibe, went into the local, Chapters Indigo, and then I go, hey, there's my book on the shelf, and now my memoir is there too, so it's, there's that. I mean, there's an ego thing, and no question, but it is certainly a thing about putting your life in order and kind of going, okay, it's done. Plus, for me, it's a thing of getting something done. So now I can move on to other things, get that out of the way, and now I can return to, you know, my regular scheduled program, which is to be writing, to be creative, to be putting together guitar pieces and songs and lyrics and yes, now I've written another book, now that I've figured out, oh, this is how it works, like it's not that hard. You just have to sit down every day and do it.
You talk a lot in this book about having no regrets making that decision, and how long it really actually took you to leave the band, because you wanted 2 years before you actually did. Did you ever, after the fact, have any regrets of leaving? I mean, you touched on it in the book, of course, but did you ever sit
No,
down? I wish I didn't do that.
regret is a weird thing to talk about, and here's why. In my humble opinion, first of all, I think if you're human, you have it. There's going to be things that you go, oh, geez, I wish I hadn't said that. Oh, I wish I hadn't gone there. Oh, yeah, it's 4 days after the fact, and you go, oh, I wish I'd thought of this to say to that guy when we were, it's like everybody has regrets, I think, but I'm not the kind of person that wants to spend too much time and energy on that. Like, I go, look, we get one crack at this, and the arrow only points one way. Like, there's no going back. You have to keep moving ahead, and there's certain things, especially as an artist, I realize there's certain things where you get something going, and the momentum of it is critical to the process. So I don't want to be going, wait, stop everything, hold the presses. I want to go back to the past, and I want to live there, and I want to regret things. And of course, if you have any kind of psychiatric help or psychological help at any point in your life, somebody that, is a behavioral psychologist, they're going to, quote ancient Chinese philosophers at you, which is, you don't want to live in the past. That's the land of regret. And you don't want to go to the future, because that's where anxiety lives. You want to be here now. This is where you can make a difference, and you can avoid those things if you could just be here. Just be here. So I go, that's what music is. That's being here. Being creative is being here. So that's why I'm not keen on regret. But having said that, I'm human. I have plenty of them.
Um, your situation might be different, but because there was a lot of tension in the band at the time that you left. But I always wondered these things, when somebody leaves a band that's a success, such a success. Phil Collins once said that when he left Genesis, it took him forever to listen to the next record, the one with Ray Wilson, and the one when he was replaced, because he didn't want to like it. He didn't want to be critical of it. What was your experience with the next record when Phil X came in and took your place? Did you sit back and say, I don't want to hear that, or did you dive in and say, I'm curious?
No, I wasn't that curious, and I didn't listen to it much. I knew that Phil X was a tremendous guitar player, like really, really highly skilled, virtuoso kind of guy, But he and I had met. We had done a thing in Toronto where it was like one of these guitar workshop symposium kinds of things, and right around the time where he'd stepped in, and it had been announced that he was replaced, and this Jim Norris from Canadian Musician Magazine was saying, "Are you going to be okay with this?" Like, of course I'm going to be. Yeah, it's not a problem. And I think I'd even, well, maybe not. Phil had played with Arnold Lanni in Frozen Ghost, and I knew Arnold, and I'd met him, and so I don't think I'd met Phil, but I had an awareness of, and I went, no, it's not going to be a problem. And when I met him, I shook his hand and I said, Phil, I wish you absolutely the best of luck. There's no one on the planet Earth that knows better what you've stepped into than me. Like, I've been there. I did that. And I know how I know what the challenges are going to be for you, So, and then the album came out, and you'd see reviews and people would talk about it, and I would be doing an interview, and somebody would say, have you heard Edge of Excess? Have you blah, blah, blah? And sometimes I would hear a little bit of it. I can't remember how. And I would go, yeah, okay. And I think honestly, that record, it reflected more of what I think Gil wanted that band to be. That was more a reflection of what, him saying to Mike, this is the kind of record I want to make. Let's go in this direction. So it got heavier and it got more straightforward, and it wasn't quite as melodic, but it was a style thing. This was what he was choosing to do. And I think at the time it was kind of now, and I mean, I experienced this myself, being a guy in his 40s that was still trying to get songs on the radio and still trying to sell records on my own, in my own solo career. It was like, yeah, we don't really want you anymore. We got Nirvana now and Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots, and that's what radio was doing. And I was an old guy now, and I was thinking, Triumph's going to face exactly the same thing. That they got way more luggage and baggage than I do. So there we were 20 years later, getting back together and going playing a couple of gigs. So, it's like, even if you have a lot of luggage and baggage, sometimes people go, yeah, bring that train on into the station. We're interested in all that baggage. Bring it.
It can work itself out. You talk about getting back together. You did inducted into the Juno Hall of Fame in 2008. You've also been put into the Canada Walk of Fame in 2019. Those are incredible honors for anybody, any Canadian musician, obviously. The documentary comes out, which was amazing, which kind of woke up Triumph fans all over the world. You guys got back and you had them play, the two of them play on one of the songs, not as Triumph, but on the which project was it? The Res 9?
Res 9, yep. Yeah, a song called Grand Parade.
Exactly. Has there ever been any? I mean, you get asked this question a million times. I'm sure they do as well. But has there ever been a thought in any of the three of you's mind? Let's record again, other than that one-off.
I haven't been approached about it. But I'll tell you this: there are times where I'm writing a new tune, and in the back of my mind, I go, this might be fun if it was a Triumph song. I could hear this one. It has the potential to be that. Before I take a left turn and make it become something else. So it does occur to me from time to time. And of course, when I made the Res 9 record for Mascot back in 2016, the guy that ran that, Ed Van Ziel, when he gave me the money to make that record, and he said, do you think you can, get like special guests? And so the whole thing of Liveson and the singer from Dream Theater and that. And I said, I think I can probably get Mike and Gil to play. And it was, oh, Mike and Gil, do you think you guys would want to do an album together? I go, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But, here's the thing, never say never, right? Gil's got the metalwork sitting there. If the guys were inclined, it could happen. Here's what stands in its way. Gil never plays drums. When we did that documentary thing and we played those 3 songs, he rehearsed every day for 6 weeks just to play 3 songs because he's just so kind of out of shape as a drummer. And then to sing one song while you're playing drums, that was like, and I mean, if you think about it, drummers that are in their 70s, like what happened to Phil Collins? I mean, can't even play drums anymore. Has to sit on a chair to sing, it becomes a much more challenging thing for a drummer. So, it's not like I'm taking stuff and dumping it onto his plate. I'm just saying that's one of the stumbling blocks. Another one is Mike. His health is, okay, but he loves to go and spend 6 months of the year in Jamaica. Like he does not want to be here when the weather is, and it's because he's so skinny. Mike is like, those people that take their dog for a walk and they put a coat on it and give it a hat and put booties on it. Like if Mike was in Canada in the winter, he would need, 14 parkas. So, yeah, Mike is not exactly what I would call the hardiest of human beings, So I don't know if he'd be up for the whole thing of, he always used to make jokes about, having to get the pickle juice jar out for his calluses. because he wouldn't play for a long time, and then his fingers would be really sore when he started playing bass again. So, you know, I just don't think those guys are driven
Right.
to be making music and recording music the way that I am. Like I need to do it, you know, like I need oxygen. I need to be making music and I need to be creative. And those other guys, they got business things that, you know, they got other interests.
Right. I mean, talking about needing to do things, you use the word retired about a million times in this book, but yet here we are talking about a book, another book, a show coming up at the Rose Theater. I mean, you're not retired. You've screwed that one up already. You're not jumping around the stage anymore in spandex pants like you used to. But tell me a little bit about the show at the Rose. What can we expect? We talked a little bit off air before we started here. It's not necessarily a show, not necessarily a concert, but tell me a little bit about the process of what can people expect when they go to there.
Well, first of all, they're not going to be able to get any tickets because it's already sold out. So
So to
we're
the people
promoting.
who already have them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what we should do really, Scott, is we'll try to see if we can't get other people to book these kinds of things because I do, I do find them kind of fun. I'm going to be doing one in Burlington at the public library at the end of April. So it's essentially it's this. It's like Rik Emmett, this is your life. You sit down, a guy asks just like this. A guy asks you questions, you answer them, you try to be animated and funny and tell some anecdotes and blah blah blah. There's a guitar on a stand beside me, and if somebody goes, well, Rik, you know that intro for Magic Power, how did you come up with that arpeggio? Well, I can pick up the guitar and I can. So there'll be moments where there'll be that. I think the guy that's doing the Rose Theater, I think Cameron Smiley, I've done it with him in the past. This time he's adding a wrinkle because he came and he said, okay, the pictures that are in your book, I want to put them in. We'll have a slide thing, and we'll bring up a slide, and we'll have it on the big screen, and then you can tell a story about the picture. I go, great, that'll be a change of pace. Sure, we'll do that. So we're going to do that too. There's going to be a slideshow as part of the show and tell.
I don't, so I don't want to fanboy too much here, but so stop me anytime if it gets too corny. I fell in love with Canadian music because of Raise a Little Hell, anything by April Wine. And then as time went on, game changers happened to me because of when I would close my eyes and be able to picture like a little mini movie from a song in my head. And sometimes with every listen, that movie could change. And it could be whether it's Fly at Night, Chilliwack, whether it's Spaceship Superstar, whether it's the obvious Spirit of Radio. Thank you for bringing Magic Power to my life, because that is one of those songs that you could listen to over and over again, close your eyes, and it's a different story every single time. What is your relationship with that song? Because I've spoken to so many people who have that one song that everybody clamps onto, and they hate it because of the fact that it is that one song. How do you feel about Magic Power now, all these years later?
Well, I'm fortunate that I have more than one evergreen tune.
Yes.
You know, Triumph was not a one-hit wonder, and in fact, Magic Power is not the best earning song in my catalog. Lay It on the Line is more the evergreen song. You know, if I'm in the States, particularly, it got Lay It on the Line got so much airplay and continues to get it on classic radio. Magic Power is a longer song, so it doesn't get the same kind of recurrent airplay. And Fight the Good Fight is a song where I've had guys, I'll tell a story about it in a second, but let me deal with the Magic Power thing first. First of all, that song means a great deal to me because I kind of wrote it about a couple of things. First of all, it was about being 9 years old and having a transistor radio under my pillow, which so many people, that was kind of what happened, you know. Radio was kind of the first introduction, a passport to the universe. It opens up the world for you when you're a kid. And it wasn't just the hit parade. For me, I would listen to baseball games from Louisville, Kentucky, or, you know, Motown from Detroit, and then classical music from Schenectady, New York. Like, you know, this little dial that you could, you know, just all over all of this crazy stuff. So that was the thing that I was trying to tap into when I was writing that song. Um, and I think about my mom, because my mom and the radio, that was a big thing in the house where I grew up. My mom would have the radio on and she'd be singing, and oh, Tony Bennett, she'd turn it up and be singing along to Tony Bennett songs, like she had her favorites. And I that whole CFRB MOR kind of world was a big part of when I was a kid. But then she dragged me off to the choir at church. And so, that was a big thing about music. My mom was kind of the one that got me into it. So when I was writing the lyric for that, in the verse, it was like he climbs into bed, he pulls the covers over, because I'm talking about myself. And then I changed it. And I mean, she climbs in. And of course, for Triumph, that made it so that now we had women that were buying tickets and coming to the shows. It changed the nature of, what the band was demographically. And I think it expanded my sense of what triumph meant. What triumph of what? It's the triumph of connecting to people and offering them something of a positive kind of inspirational, motivational kind of value. And that was before there was the whole motivational, inspirational kind of world of, a whole section for it in the library. Anyhow, so that's part of that thing. And then what you mentioned, Russian Spirit of Radio, same thing. Like, I could get on an airplane and fly to someplace like, I don't know, Tampa, and go and play, and people were singing my songs from the seats because radio had played them, and these people knew the tunes even before I'd ever been to that town. And that's an unbelievable feeling. And I wanted to say to radio, thank you for making this be a part of my life. Now, I promised you the fight story. So in what context was I going to? Oh, so yeah, here's the thing about that one. Like, we're talking about evergreen songs now.
Yeah.
So Magic is its own evergreen in its own way. Lay It on the Line, certainly in its way. Fight was a song that it was really long, and it had kind of a long intro, and then it had the fade on it was a long fade that was it was very symphonic in structure, because it was the way I thought about it. Like, to me, it was no big deal that Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys wrote songs that were going, wouldn't it be nice if we were older? And then like, it changes tempo, it changes character, and that was the beginning for Brian Wilson of he's on his way to Good Vibrations, which is going to change keys and it's all going to happen in 3 minutes. So that idea of, I could start with a quiet intro, and then I could have this, and then we could be as heavy as Led Zeppelin, and then it's gonna. So I write this tune, and then years later, Jim Peterick, the guy that wrote Eye of the Tiger, had a band, Survivor. When he was a teenager, he had a band called Ides of March, and he had a hit, Vehicle. Like, so he calls me up, hey, you want to come to Chicago play? Yeah, okay, as I go, and Jim sort of, corners me in the dressing room. He says, I always wished I could write a song as good as Fight the Good Fight. I wish I had written something. And I go, wow, the guy that's independently wealthy, because he was the guy that wrote Eye of the Tiger, is telling me that he wished that he wrote a song like that. So, and that's a kind of a thing that it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. You're going to realize, okay, so there's something evergreen about that song for that kind of guy. And I'm lucky that I was positioned that those kinds of things would happen.
Somebody's out there, or what was the biggest hit or chart hit in the U.S.? Was it Somebody's Out There?
Yeah, it was the one that climbed the highest. Yeah.
And you wrote that song. You say in the book you wrote that song in a day, in a.
Yeah, it makes for a good story, and certainly it is one way to tell the story. I mean, I keep spiral notebooks, and I keep 3-ring binders, and I'm constantly putting stuff in them. Like, oh, I get an idea for a rhyming couplet, or I'm sitting around and I'm plinging and plunging, and I get a couple of chord changes and I like it, and I stick them in the books. So when Mike Klink and Mike Levine sent me home and said, look, you got to write something, we need a hit. So I went home and I started combing through, old songs that hadn't quite, well, I can steal this chunk from that. I can steal this thing from that. And the documentary wasn't far wrong when it had this little joke cartoon of a raccoon making noise outside on the driveway. And it was like, well, something's out there somewhere, somehow, something, somebody's out there. Like, uh, here's how that happened. I think there was a Platinum Blonde song that had a kind of a something, somehow, some way, and
Somebody somewhere, and yeah, something. Yeah, you're right. I can't
yeah,
remember the song, but yeah.
and I think I was working and I'd found this thing in a notebook where it was like somebody, somehow, some way, something, and I had this list, and I went, oh, and that, Platinum Blonde has shown that you can do it, like it works, and so I think somehow between those two things, that song started to, that it was like I wanted to make it be a little more of a focused idea of, everybody's got someone out there that, they're going to be able to connect to. Now, you want to hear a funny story about that song?
Sure.
Never say no to Irving Azoff. Irving was the guy that was the president of MCA Records at the time. And he, of course, he managed the Eagles, and like he was already probably had more money than he would ever need in his life. But, he was one of those kind of guys that also liked power, and he liked, so, and he's running this record company in the Valley. And he calls us up, and he's going, this song is great. I've got a really good idea for the video. And I was like, and we go, okay, yeah, what? He goes, well, so it's going to be like E.T. So it's going to start, and it's going to be like from a planet, and then there's going to be coming down into the earth. Or maybe we start from the earth and we go up through the clouds and we go up into outer space. And I go, wait, you're going to make it be about aliens? He goes, yeah, like somebody's out there, right? Right? And I go, I hate it. No, we're not doing that. It's about people. It's not about aliens in outer space, spaceships and stuff. And he went, oh, okay. But I thought, oh no, like, I've really done it now, like, should have never said no. Should have just went, that's a great idea. Sure, let's do that. He probably would have given us like, $500,000 to make the video, right?
Well, I think it turned out okay. The last time I saw you perform live was with Triumph at Maple Leaf Gardens with Kim Mitchell. I don't even know what tour that was. It's been a very long time, so I can't wait to hear you play and sing again. The show is sold out. Stage Door Stories, an interactive and intimate night of stories and music with Rik Emmett in the studio at the Rose Theatre, presented by Brampton on Stage and in part by us here at TRP on April the 9th. The book is called Lay It on the Line. And it is a fantastic read. I did not use it to go to sleep at all, Rik. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the record player today. It's been an honor. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No problem. We'll see you on April 9th.
Okay, bud.